Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lost Boyz Podcast. This is episode 50. Gianni,
Brandon.
welcome. I feel like we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, we've been skipping past it.
Yeah, I've just been jumping right into it. But with that being said, today's episode 50, which means we're 2 weeks away from the 1 year mark. So please make sure to subscribe, and share with friends and family and everyone. And with that being said, we're just going to jump right into it. Damn. Today's topic, we are talking about bettering your articulation. Wow, the irony in that. As you can see, it's something I need to work on as well. So when I say these things, it's not because I'm perfect at it. It's because I'm also saying things I need to know. I mean, I need to tell myself so that I can work on them as well.
Same here. Like even this podcast, right, as a whole. I have to work on how I articulate my ideas and some of the points I want to make, because it might sound great in my head, but when I finally spit it out, I might sound stupid because I'm not articulating it well, or I'm not putting the puzzle pieces so it can make sense for somebody who's on the outside.
Yeah. And I've noticed too how important articulation is, because it does determine a lot, especially when it comes to just misunderstandings with, like, whether it's friends, families, relationships, whatever it could be, bosses. A lot of the misunderstandings come from how things are articulated and how things can be misconstrued. A lot of things are meant one way but perceived another, if that makes sense. And it all comes down to how you say it, and not so much what you're saying, but the delivery and the approach towards what you're saying.
Agreed. Like, I'll give the same example we used when we were planning this episode, right? If let's say G has a stain on his left shoulder, and I walk out to him and I'm like, "Yo, you dickhead, you asshole, you have this on your left shoulder." Initial reaction is gonna be like what? Like, yo, who you talking to like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna trigger defense, right? Or if I'm just like, "Yo, bro, you got a stain on your left shoulder, right?" Then it's like, "Oh, all right, thank you."
Yeah.
The delivery is very important. You also have to know, part of articulation too is knowing who your audience is. Yeah. Like, you're not going to tailor one message to all people the same way.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, because I was going to say just that, like, your audience is important too, because not everyone takes things the same way. So for some people, you have to be a brute and just, like, blunt and right to their face, this, and this, for them to understand. And others are more sensitive and more emotional, where you kind of have to say it but frame it in a different way, where they can become accepting of it but still understand the message you're trying to portray. And I guess that kind of brings in, like, a little bit of psychology, right? It kind of depends on who you are. Some people, they're just only like, nah, I'm just gonna keep it 100 straight up to your face, and that's it. Whether you like it or not, this is what it is. You could think I'm a dickhead for it, or you could love me for it. And then other people go a little too soft sometimes, where they're always like, trying to, like, say something, but then give themselves a way out. Like, I think you should do this and this and this. But that's just me, though, you know? They always give themselves that, like, cancel out effect. And I think both are beneficial in certain circumstances. Sometimes it's a right to be brutal and honest to somebody's face. Sometimes you have to play the other out. And like you said, it's circumstantial. It depends on the person, your audience, who you're talking to, because that's going to determine a lot. Because I can tell somebody, hey, look, 2 + 2, it equals 4. Because if you have 2 and then you just add 2 more and you count them, that's 4. And they're like, okay, I got you. And then some other people, you could tell them nicely, and they're just like, whatever. And then you tell them, no, 2 + fucking 2 equals fucking 4, idiot. And they're like, oh shit. And then it clicks in their head. So it all depends. It's circumstantial too. And that's where, like, the psychology games can be played too as well. It could become manipulative too. But understanding your audience is definitely a key component and factor in articulation.
A huge point when it comes to, like, for figuring out how you want to say things and what you want to say. At least for me, I'm definitely more of the second person. Like, I'm I'm kind of an airhead, so but I need you to be like, yo, dude, it's this plus this equals fucking this, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just more so me. Like, I'm also not the kind to pick up the soft hints. Like, I just prefer shit straight up, like,
yeah,
quick to the point. But that not everybody's like that. Some people you need to walk around the point 17 times for them to finally get, oh, this is about this. And it's just that it comes with experience of like having like in-depth conversations on how to maneuver between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And just going back to like delivery and approach, a lot of that is going to determine how people judge you, especially if it's like a first impression, how you come across, how you say certain things, your tone of voice, the words you choose, how you frame it is all going to be used towards you in judgment. So it's important to understand how to use your articulation when you're meeting somebody, like you mentioned, and I just mentioned with certain audiences, right? I'm not going to talk to, I don't know, the CEO of a company I'm working for a certain way that I'm going to talk to my friend. It's going to be two different conversations. I'm not going to bump him on the show. I mean, maybe, right? I don't know. Maybe you develop that level of friendship, but initially on first impression, you're not going to talk to the first time ever meeting the company CEO. You're not going to talk to them the way you talk to your friend.
Yeah.
Most likely, because you're trying to set yourself you're trying to show a good example so that you can have the best opportunities going forward. And you want to show professionalism and all these other things. And I know for myself, at least with my friends, I talk very improper, cursing, tons of slang, like saying crazy, outrageous things to each other that if anyone ever heard, I'd go to jail for. So it's like two very different situations, and you need to understand that. And I think this is going to be a little triggering for some people maybe, but I'm not idolizing the guy. I'm just saying one person who was extremely well at this, who became very powerful because of this, is Hitler. Because he understood the power of articulation and the psychology of articulation. Yeah. He understood how to say things, when to say things, and he used it in a way to manipulate people to then come to his following for his benefit and personal gain, and for what he believed what was right. And that's a perfect example of how understanding articulation, knowing it and using it and becoming better at it can play into your favor based upon what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Nah, absolutely. Like with the example you used, something he did very well is trigger emotion. When you speak and you're articulating yourself, especially if it's something you're passionate about, the tone you use, the words you use, and just like your facial expression and your demeanor will trigger a response in the other person. If you're very, like, coming off very broad, but you're like very aggressive and, your face is very stiff, right? You're going to trigger more of a defensive reaction in other people. Or if you're very like hands open and, you're speaking very calmly, you come off more as a trustworthy. So it's like a game, and there are people who get very, very good at this game. And that's when people can become, like you said, manipulative, because you start understanding the different reactions that you can cause with consistency. So it's like, oh, I can make X, Y, and Z people feel this if I do X, Y, and Z. Bet.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%.
Those are like experts at like public speaking and just debating and.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is even like presidents, right? When they're trying to talk to the mass of people, good presidents typically know how to change their language a bit so that the average person can understand it. Some presidents are a little too articulate, and they don't understand that they need to change because not everybody can comprehend what's actually being said, because the majority of the world is ignorant and not as smart as you think them to be. And like a good example of someone who was like too articulate, in this case, he was too smart in his, just, I guess, how he spoke, his vocabulary, everything, is Obama. He was very articulate, like in the sense that he was very smart, and the words he used were very big, powerful words that the average person in like Idaho living on a farm their entire life may or may not understand. So when he's trying to convey a message, it's going over their head because they're not understanding it, or they're misinterpreting the message because they're not able to break down what's actually being said. And in positions of power and leadership, you have to understand audiences, like we said before, and understand, okay, with C-level executives, I can speak a certain vocabulary and tone and things like that. With my entry level employees who do the dirty work and are all the way at the bottom of the list, I have to talk to them a specific way to keep them motivated to understand X, Y, and Z. The people in the middle, I have to speak to them a specific way. I can't talk to everybody just one way because it's not gonna trigger the same reaction in every single person the same exact way. People are either going to start hating my guts for it or loving me for it, but it's going to create too much polarization. And in this company, I don't need polarization. I need unity because we're trying to make money and greatness happen. So it's the same thing in any realm of life. I'm chilling with all my friends. We're arguing about something. I need to make a point come across. I understand the intelligence of some of my friends. I know with some of them, I can use more elaborate words and say things more blunt, and right to their face. I can say things in a certain way where I know they're going to get it and the message isn't going to go over their head. And then there's other ones where I have to backtrack and deliberately explain every little step of it so that they can understand the full picture. Because if I just say this and jump to this, they can't read in between the lines to understand what's being insinuated and actually being said. So articulation is extremely, extremely important.
Something that's actually a really good point too, because like when we speak, we tend to imply things, but if you don't have, like you said, the surrounding knowledge, you can't catch what's implied. So it's like, whoa, slow your tracks, like slow down. Where was the connection there?
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, a good way to like improve your articulation is to improve your argument overall. When you have something that you're going to discuss, right? Let's say we're going to discuss climate change, right? Let's say you're for climate change and, you know, you want to like you want to just articulate yourself well in this conversation. Find out everything as to why people are against climate change, or people are against the change, or people are against the, you know, changing our day-to-day lives for climate change. Understand all of that. Dive deep into the opposite side, and you will slowly just start realizing you know more about the situation than most of the people you're talking to, but you can form your argument a kind of way where you know what they're going to throw at you already. And part of articulating yourself well is you have to be confident in what you're talking about. If you're very unsure of what you're talking about, people are going to know. Like, you're going to stutter, or maybe you're going to think twice. You're not like, these are all things that you can improve on just by, before even getting into the conversation, just having the knowledge around it.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. Like the best thing to do if you're going to have debates or arguments with people, you have to understand the opposing side more than you almost understand the side you're for. And sometimes you're for this side. And once you start diving deep into the opposing side, sometimes you might actually change your mind and be like, oh, wow, actually, this proves everything that I believe to be the opposite. You know, this just showed everything is wrong. And then you change your mind. And now you had the understanding of before with the new knowledge of now. And now your argument to support that is going to be extremely powerful. And it's going to be very difficult for people to get through you, through you on those topics. Another thing too with articulation, it's not so much being articulate yourself, but also understanding articulation as well. Being able to understand how people talk, why they use certain tones, certain words, certain insinuations, why with these people they speak a certain way and with these people they don't. Understanding that and that frame is super important because it's going to put you in situations where you may see somebody saying something in a specific scenario under certain circumstances and certain occasions that are currently happening in that moment, and they may say certain things, but because your understanding of articulation and how it works and why it is the way it is, you can understand that what they're saying maybe isn't 100% the case, but they're saying it in a way so that everyone understands. So to me, I might be like, if I don't understand articulation and somebody's in a different setting now from when I first heard it and they're saying things differently, I may be like, oh, this person is full of shit. They're just trying to like, he's trying to kiss ass to these people, or he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like he just changed his whole argument and everything he was talking about. It's like, no, he didn't. He just changed his approach and delivery because he understood the audience he was speaking to.
Yep.
It's not that he's trying to kiss ass. Is that he understands that he has to deliver himself a certain way, because if he doesn't, then everything and anything that comes out his mouth is going to go in one ear and right out the other. No one's going to even pay mind to it, right? If I'm talking to C-level executives, like if I'm talking to a kindergarten class, they're going to look at me, get up and walk out the room. They're not going to respect me or think I have anything valuable to give to them. They're not going to care. But if I can talk to kindergartners like kindergartners, people in high school like high schoolers, and CEOs like CEOs, well, then I'm going to get by everywhere. I'm going to be able to survive, thrive, and excel in each realm because I understand the game. I understand how it needs to move and operate in order for me to succeed. And if I can't understand that and then execute on it, then I'm going to struggle and I'm going to have a very, very difficult time. So understanding articulation is just as important as being able to articulate yourself.
That super well said. And I'm like 99% sure that's in a different verbatim in the 48 Laws of Power. Is you have to know when to wear which mask, right? Like you said, if you're talking to C-suite people, you need to know, you need to speak well, you need to speak confident, and you need to speak quick, right? But if like talking to second graders, you need to speak slower, dumb down the language a little bit, knowing when to wear which mask is super, super important.
Yeah.
There you go. Me fucking up my articulation.
Yeah, no, I've been fucking up too, but
it's funny that it's on this episode. Because at the end of the last episode, I was like, yo, you've been articulating yourself so well.
Yeah. And I was like, really? And then now I'm stuttering. But yeah, also just part of articulation too. Like, as I just mentioned, if you talk to CEOs like kindergartners, they're not going to pay mind to you, probably because they think you're dumb. And I've noticed there's a lot of people who are mentally capable of understanding things and knowing things and being smart enough that they're not dumb, but how they convey their message, how they articulate their message makes them sound like they're dumb. And it's not because they are dumb. They just don't know how to speak, but they're actually very intelligent. Like they understand everything that's being said, and they understand what exactly the point is you're making. They might agree or disagree, but how they come off once they start talking about it, it can rub people the wrong way because they're not articulating it well, or people just think, this dude's retarded. What are you talking about? Because the analogies they might use, like how they go about expressing that thought or understanding gets flawed, and everything gets invalidated because of the fact that they're not good speakers and their communication is weak. So articulating itself is also important for that reason.
It's true. Like, while you were talking, this idea popped in my head, and it's in regards to like, you know, the sudden movement, not sudden, but like, you know, like these Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit people and like their message versus like how it's presented to women today, right? And I was, because while you were talking, I got to thinking about, I was like, yo, I've had many conversations with women about like some of these topics, and more women than not actually agree with a lot of it when it's broken down the right way.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of these cases, the bravado behind like, oh, right, like I need to yell and get my point across, like really just turns some people off to the idea in general. But when it comes to like no, let me break it down in your language, how this sounds, right? Because you can't, our first point, you can't talk to everybody the same way, right? Something that is so widely disagreed with, broken down to a smaller scale, like, no, like, this is actually what men want, and this is why we want that, and this is what we expect versus what you get and everything like that. More often than not, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I get it. But when it's like, no, get in the kitchen type shit, like, it's no, fuck you. Like, So it's all about delivery, because poor delivery can ruin the greatest ideology.
100%. And that's a really good point too, just in the dating realm. Especially, I mean, I can't speak for women because I'm not a woman, but as a man, understanding articulation, extremely important, because when you're on dates with these girls, when you're trying to take them through a vetting process to see if they're a qualified partner, you know, somebody you want to have for the rest of your life and maybe have a family with and things like that, how that person articulates themselves is very important. At least to me, I pay very close attention to how they articulate themselves, what words they use, how they use it, how they frame their sentences, what they're actually saying versus the message behind what they're saying. And when you start to pay attention to their articulation and you start to understand and become more knowledgeable, you start to realize how they reveal a lot about themselves without necessarily saying a lot about themselves. It's just about how they frame things that then gives you the answer. So then you could start reading between the lines and you could pick up on little cues that they're saying one thing at face value, but behind it is a whole different meaning to it that's going over your head. But that's because it's subtle, right? You don't want to just throw that out there, especially if you're somebody you just met, but they'll give you little hints. And if you can understand their articulation, then you can understand what's actually going on. Then you can start to realize, wait, hold on. I see this. Maybe it's a good thing, or maybe it's a bad thing. So maybe you qualify them more, or maybe you disqualify them based off their articulation. Also, just the fact alone that they can articulate themselves well, for me, is a good thing, because that gives me the impression that they're more intelligent. And the fact that they're with me is going to give off the impression that I'm intelligent. And that's going to raise my status around everyone else, because they're going to see how she speaks and everything. And they're going to assume my character based off her character and my intelligence based off her intelligence. And that all around is going to give me more status, more opportunity, more everything. So the articulation is extremely important in the dating realm. And a lot of people overlook that. I think it's extremely important. And when, like I said, once you start to understand it and understand more things beyond just articulation, you can see how you can piece things together and suddenly things start making sense. And then you can what I like to do is crack jokes in a sarcastic way where they can kind of tell I'm joking, but also aren't sure and kind of make them guess about it, because I realized that I picked up on something that they were telling me that I realized actually isn't 100% the case. It's like 70% the case. And I picked up on it, and then I kind of throw it back at them without really saying it bluntly straight to their face. I just kind of make them start thinking about it. And it works. It works. It's like a little game of banter and stuff, like going back and forth. And it's like, damn, like I can't get through this guy. Like he catches on to everything I say. How? And then it just plays with them. And then it draws in more attraction, and you go further into more. Now they want to hang out with you more because they're curious. They want to figure you out now and things like that.
The more you know about them without them really knowing too much about you only works in your favor.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the key points of attraction is like, besides like the physical shit, is like mysteriousness. If a girl knows too much about a guy, she loses interest.
Yeah, 100%. And that's also plays a role into the man as well. If you're a man who's dating and in the dating market, right? How you articulate yourself on these dates is going to also tell a lot to the girl about you. And she's going to make judgments off you. Based off how you articulate yourself, she's going to judge whether you're someone who's intelligent, you know, you're this kind of person, you're a rude person, you're a nice person, you're a good person. All these things, they're making judgments off you based off your your articulation, your tone. They're determining if you're confident from that. They're judging you 24/7. All humans are always judging people 24/7, and it's for survival reasons. It's embedded in us. As humans, we have to judge other humans because it's in our biology for survival. Way back when, we had to judge whether things or other people, other humans, were threats to us because we needed to protect ourselves. So we needed to have a defensive mindset at first, and a mindset where we try to disqualify this person as much as possible until they can prove themselves otherwise. It's the same exact thing in every other realm of life. People are defensive 24/7, right? They're always going to have their guard up and try to disqualify you or find any little justification as to why you shouldn't be in their life. And a lot of that is going to come from your articulation, how you say things, what you're saying, the framing of what you're saying, the tone of what you're saying, the volume at what you're saying it at. All these things they're all making subconscious judgments on whether they like you or they don't, whether you're a strong person, whether you're a weak person, a confident person or an insecure person. 24/7 that's happening.
Listen, we are so geniusly created creatures. Like something as simple as the way we sit, right? Whether if you're very tight, if your shoulders are loose, if you take up a lot of space. Animals, like, look at lions, look at an elephant. All animals have very similar, like, I don't want to say body language because all animals have different bodies, but kind of body languages where, because it's like you said, across all realms of life, it's about judging, identifying, is this a threat or not? That's why, like, you'll see the way lions are very loose because they take up a lot of space. So motherfuckers know not to fuck with them, right? Same thing with people. The guy who is very loose with his shoulders, right? Very shoulders back, broad shoulders, takes up a lot of space, legs open. It's typically the person in control of that setting.
Yeah.
It's all about judgments. And these are things that you've been doing since you were a child, like literally a baby. So you don't sit here and think like, oh, that person must be this. But you have like I want to say like a subconscious scanning, reading, all right, not a threat. Yeah. Oh, wait, this person I got to watch out for. Like,
yeah, 100%. That's why, like, especially if you're somebody who's big, once you see somebody who's smaller and you have an understanding of what you're capable of, you typically, like, don't go ahead and do things. Like, most MMA fighters and boxers and stuff typically don't get into street fights because they understand what they're capable of. That it actually calms them down. It does the opposite. But just to bring everything back to articulation, I guess verbal articulation is what we've mostly been talking about, but body language is one too. Like you said, the person with their shoulders, the man with the shoulders back, their chest out, calm, cool, relaxed, doesn't look like he's threatened or nothing, looks like the threat instead. More people are going to be inclined to want to be your friend because it's survival. They see you as somebody who's strong and powerful, which means you can protect them. So they want to become a clan together so that if shit goes down, they know, okay, he got me and I could get him. And that person's also going to look for somebody similar to him because for the same reason. I want strong people around me because if I have strong people around me, then I don't have to worry about crazy situations because I know even if a crazy situation happens, we can handle ourselves. But if there's a weak link in the group, that's when shit goes crazy and shit goes left. And that's how you make those judgments are based off verbal communication and physical communication as well. Physically, like muscles, stature, how you walk, your voice, how you talk, all these things. And again, once you understand both verbal and physical communication and articulation, you can then manipulate it also if you choose to do so. Hopefully not for evil, but for good. But you can do it for both. And you can understand how to play this art of war on people where you give off certain impressions on purpose to get a certain reaction to either justify something or disqualify something, or to put them in a position where now, depending on what you're doing, you can now attack and completely blindside them. But that all comes with just becoming better at articulating yourself. Just like I said, verbally, physically, understanding emotions, understanding just language in general, and understanding body language. All these things all play into one big factor. And it really does make a difference in your life when you understand everything, because you pick things up like that.
Yeah.
Once you become a master at it, you can see right through everything. And you can see certain things that you just pick up right away. Boom. And you already know, okay, this is the kind of person I know. All right, I'm only going to use certain words. I'm only going to say certain things. Maybe whatever I tell them is just public knowledge. I don't care if anyone knows. I'm not going to trust this person with X, Y, and Z. This person, I'm going to trust with X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to trust with this part. And then you have certain things, and you can read all of that within seconds.
Bars.
Yeah.
I feel like once an episode, there's a Gianni rant that ends in me saying bars.
No, yeah.
We need to make a compilation of all your top rants.
All my top rants. Yeah, somebody make a compilation of that. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, me neither.
But if you want to, please be my guest. Please be my guest. But yeah, I mean, those are my closing thoughts, really. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to say or touch on.
Yeah, I'll close it out with this. Articulation is very important, but it goes hand in hand with intelligence too. You will articulate yourself better by making yourself an expert on what it is you're talking about. And that also opens the door for conversation on the topic of you're not always going to be an expert on the conversation. There's also a way to articulate yourself well when you don't know what you're talking about. And it's typically by stating that you don't know what you're talking about, by asking questions. Like, it's a very important, I feel like, piece of being intelligent is knowing when to ask questions. But that is a whole conversation. That could be his own episode, because not enough people ask enough questions. We know because of our comment section, you assholes. But but nah, all jokes aside. Seek intelligence, like just seek knowledge. You will naturally start to speak better, and then take into account the list that G just gave, where it's like, you know, body language or verbally, what words to use, what words strike certain emotions, or if I talk and I'm sitting back, or if I'm leaning forward, like, which is very underrated, by the way. When somebody's speaking, right? Pro tip, if you're ever in an interview and the person's saying something like serious, you always lean forward, right? Because something as little as going from here, like, right, oh yeah, we're just showing, to leaning forward, is I'm intrigued. You have my undivided attention. I am now seriously trying to hear what you have to say. Or if I'm laid back, it's like, yeah, nah, that's cool. Like, yeah. But here it's like, oh, so tell me more.
Yeah.
Right? So when you lean in, it makes the speaker feel more empowered, right? A little pro tip nobody asked for.
Yeah. And then a little pro tip, because I heard you say it, so I picked up on it right away, because it made perfect sense. When we described the person leaning back, you started off with, yeah, nah, that's cool. The best way to understand if somebody's serious about something, or like fucks with it, or doesn't, is if they say, yeah, nah, that means it's a no. But they say, nah, yeah, they agree with it. That's why I was like, oh, it's perfect. He literally just said, yeah, nah. And that's the person leaning back. Is like, no, it definitely does not care. The person is like, nah, yeah, they're intrigued.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's for you Northeasters.
Yeah, facts. I don't know if everyone does that, but
yeah,
definitely in the Northeast, that's huge. I feel like that's a good example to end it on.
We can end it right there.
All right. Well, again, that's episode 50, 2 weeks away from the 1 year mark. Please subscribe, like as well, and comment for the algorithm. But more than anything, subscribe. 1 year's coming up. We'll catch you guys next week on episode 51. Peace.